Well, welcome everybody. It is Friday, February 7th, and I am live again with Brian Noble, the CEO of Family Policy Institute of Washington. And Brian, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm always honored to be on Unbolted. It's just an exciting time to be with MJ.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Well, it's a sunny day here in Spokane. We've got quite a bit of snow now. And so I've got this beam of light coming in through my
Yeah,
through
it's
my window.
dramatic lighting. It's
Yeah, I
great.
know, right? So it's a good thing, but it's casting funky shadows and all that
Yeah.
as I continue to endeavor in this podcasting, world. So, Brian, thanks for being with us. What's your updates from Olympia? What's been going on this week? Tell us what you've experienced, what you've heard, any conversations that are of importance that you want to share with people. And please, if you're joining us today, hopefully comment in the comment box. Tell us who you are and where you're from, and any questions that you might have for Brian or for me, and that will help us, have a fun podcast here.
That's right. So I wasn't ignoring you. I was actually bringing up my notes on my phone because I just did an interview. I'm like, oh, this will be helpful if I actually have some notes. So SB 1677. Mandate abortion pills on college campuses by 2627. That's a bad bill that's out there that's coming up. And we could go into more of these later if we want. But HB 1296 seeks to erase your will and voice for the parental bill of rights. So those are two I can pull out. I think I have 8 my staff wrote up for me that we can talk about, but those are 2 that we can start with anyway, if you want to.
Okay. So you said 1677 was the first one?
Yeah, so there's a companion bill, and I don't remember the number. I think it was 5321, Senate Bill 5321, if I remember right off the top of my head. But basically, it says that if college students don't have quick access to abortion pills, that they can't learn well. So I know abortion is a sensitive subject. At the same time, I think as we look at life and valuing life, I think it's an important topic that when people are making lifelong changing decisions, that we think through this. We process through it and the implications of that. So those are some bad bills. There's another one. I mean, I don't know what your hope is, but there's a Free the Vote Act of HB 1196. It's restoring voting rights to felons while they're incarcerated, I believe, if I remember right. I may have that part wrong. But there's some, and I can read through these, and rent control bills that are really not going to help the market at all. So there's a variety of topics on our bad bills. If we want to talk about any of those, we can today. And then, and then we got our good bills that are coming out too. So we got some good stuff. So
okay. So, and it doesn't look like 1677 is scheduled for a hearing as of yet. So let's kind of do this. Let's kind of walk through. If I can share my screen real quick and show people again how let's see here. Just give me 1 second.
no problem. Because actually I didn't have mine open either, so I'll get that. So if you're just joining us, if you comment in whatever platform you're on, we'll try to monitor that and post your comment and talk a little bit. And
okay, so so you can see my screen. So I'm on ledge.wa.gov. Again, we talked about this last week. So if you're curious about a bill, if you want to follow what's happening with a bill, of course, Family Policy of Institute of Washington's Defender app, it makes it really, really easy to do that and gives you links. But you can also go directly to ledge.wa.gov and click in the bill number here, and it will take you to that bill. So here's 1677. So the bill you were just talking about does not have anything scheduled yet. But it just had its first hearing on January 28th. So we need to watch that closely. It doesn't mean it won't, but right now it doesn't have a hearing, at least for next week. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that one. And then what we're
wasn't that the companion bill? I think it's at the top of that screen, 5321. I'm more curious just if I have the number right in my head.
Well, I don't see where is it saying. Am I missing it, Brian?
It's up higher. It should tell you the companion bill, or it was at the top. I just didn't see it.
Oh, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, that's
well,
fine.
let's pull it up. 53. Let me just do a quick search real quick. 53. So this is basically 1677 is legislation that has been introduced in our legislature. It's it doesn't have a lot of, interesting. I was just doing a AI search on it. So House bill, and you think it's 5321, Brian?
I think so. 5321, if I remember off the top of my head. But those bills are out there and it's moving. This is in the Senate as well. There was some testimony on this, public hearings on that one. So I think that's the companion bills that we're working. And I would say this, and your screen froze for me. I don't know if we need to refresh it, but it's still stuck in the same position.
Okay.
But let me pop off and see if it refreshes, if that's okay. There we go.
Remove
Let's go
it,
back.
and then
No,
add it.
it's still frozen on mine.
Okay.
But those two bills are there, and everything starts with prayer. Oh, there it updated.
So here's the companion bill.
Yeah, here's a companion bill, and
Okay,
starts with prayer. Start by praying over these things, and then thinking about what you could do to take action, to take a stand for these items.
Yes, exactly. So this did have a hearing on January 27th, on January 30th. So usually, again, as we learn this process, or as people that are joining us are just learning this process, you get the first reading, which sends it to the committee, and then you get a hearing, a public hearing where people can testify, sign in if they're pro or con. You also have the legislators that will talk about where they stand on it. The executive action is when they actually vote on it. So it does look like it passed out of committee, right?
Okay.
And then it's going to Ways and Means because there's a fiscal note tied to this. So it did pass out of committee, and now it's on to Ways and Means. So it will have to pass out of Ways and Means as well before it will get floor action in the Senate. So this thing is moving quite quickly. So we want to watch that one. 5321 is a big one.
Yeah, and I think the companion bill 1677. I wish we could figure that out, but I mean I just don't know where that's listed, the companion bills. I saw that somewhere in there.
But it looks like it is the same one. Yeah,
it is. Okay, so so those are there, and we just want to make sure that we're standing for all the vulnerable. I'm one of those people that, whether it's in the womb or in the nursing home, we need to stand up for people who are vulnerable and take care of them. And make sure that they're doing well. So, yeah, so that's a bill that we've been following. Any thoughts on that one? And what we can talk about?
Well, yeah, I think we just got to be, as you said, very diligent. These things pass through. A lot of people, didn't understand that some of this legislation has happened the last couple of years that allowed students or children under the age of 18 to be able to, go to a shelter and not tell their parents. Julie Barrett, we've had her on. She's told her story. This is where this stuff happens, and we've got to be diligent and pay attention. So, and this is the time to weigh in. So we need you to engage with this, engage with that bill, reach out to your legislators. Let's watch this, let the legislators know, let your legislators know, let the people on the committee know how you feel about this. And if you think that public tax dollars should be spent this way. So, yeah. Brian, what did you say 1296 was?
Yeah, 1296, and the companion bill is 5181, seeks to erase so there's explain companion bills, because I don't know that I fully understand that, MJ, but I believe it's just similar bills that are operating on both sides, but maybe you can unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah, so it was companion bills basically. So you have the two chambers of the legislature. You have the House and the Senate, and a bill has to pass both the House and the Senate to get to the governor's desk and be signed, right? And so what they often do as a strategy is to offer companion bills that start in each area, and hopefully that one will make it through. Right. And so it's a similar bill. What can happen is different amendments, of course, because it's got different committees, different, legislators. It can, transpire differently, but usually there's a fleshing out. So you definitely have to pay attention to both. Just because one's dead doesn't mean the other one's not. And you just got to keep on your toes about it. Yeah. So definitely, 1296 is the one we talked about last week, which got the attention of President Trump, which he
Hmm.
retweeted, when all the legislators in the committee, all the Democrats, voted against an amendment that would allow for immediate notification of parents if their child was harmed in some way,
Right.
um, by a staff member.
Right.
And so that passed. That was approved and passed. And so talk about 5181. I've got another. Let me see if I can find it real quick since we're
Yeah.
talking about it.
Let
Go
me
ahead.
read. Let me read the summary that my staff gave me. So 51 seeks to erase the will of the voice of the people of Initiative 2081. So the Parents' Bill of Rights. So the parents of, or the voters of Washington State, passed through hundreds of thousands of signatures I-2081, and that went through the right process and was put into law. It was also substantiated by our court system to say that it's a good law. And so these bills will protect only a few children who receive medical and mental health services without parental consent and knowledge. Again, the question is, who's the primary stakeholder of this child? Is it the state or is it the parent? The intent is to keep those medical records out of the hands of parents. It just drives me nuts. I mean, I don't think you mind me sharing this, but both of us deal with kids with disabilities, or,
Yeah.
with situations like that. And I can't imagine, there's so many decisions that are made when someone's struggling with an area of their life, whether that be mental, emotional, physical, there's a lot of things that can happen there. To have a piece of information that is incredibly important to be the best caretaker of them withheld is going to be detrimental. And I can tell you, at least in my case, where Isabel has been hospitalized numerous times, if we weren't there to inform them, they had the records, but they didn't read them. They would have done something that would have been extremely, she's allergic to, or whatever, that would have literally killed her. Parents
Yep.
need that information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen here. So the Senate Republicans posted this. Let's see here. Can you see my right screen?
Yep.
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 Okay. And this was basically, and so last week, again, the companion bill 1296 passed out of committee
Right.
and made all the news. This is the companion bills 5181, and it passed out of committee and it passed off the Senate floor. This happened just a couple of days ago, and this
Wow.
is a post by the Washington State Senate Republicans
Okay.
on X, and it said all of the Democrats, or yeah, all of the Democrats voted yes, and undermining these parental rights, and all the Republicans stood with the parents and voted no. And you can see in the red here in this graphic is the people that voted no, the Republicans, and the green, the Democrats that voted yes and passed this off the Senate floor. So again, this bill isn't a done deal yet. It goes to the House, and it'll go to committee hearing, but man, they're fast tracking this very quickly.
They are, and this is where we want to keep attentive to these things and make aware. So you say, what do I practically do? Just as a citizen, a grassroots person, talk to your neighbors about this. Talk to your friends about this. I firmly believe that there's a lot of Democrats who say that the government shouldn't be the primary stakeholder of the child's life. They believe that parents should, and so these electeds, Democrats, decided like, hey, the parents don't need this, and so I think this is just, as Trump might say, a common sense measure that we need to take and stand up and say, no, parents are the primary stakeholder. That there's nothing, extreme about that. There, it's very, very simple, And again, that's all forms, guardianship. There's adoption. There's a lot of different forms of how someone has that stakeholding, but it's really important. So you can check those bills out, and we need to take a stand and let our neighbors know. Then once you've known, I think they need to let their voice be heard. Register your position, testify, written testimony. Now, I've had a lot of people lately say it doesn't seem to matter. When we're doing these, they're not listening to us anyways. I say we do the right thing regardless of how other people respond. We are to do the right thing. But we need to use positive pressure to encourage them to take a stand against these bills.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to take you over to the screen again in ledge.wa.gov on House Bill 5181. All right, there. Can you see it now, Brian?
Yep.
Okay. And so here's the bill that we were just talking about. So you can see Claire Wilson is the main sponsor. Whoops. It took me right to all her bills. She's a former school board member
Right.
in out of I can't remember the school district right off the hand. But these are the people that you need to be contacting and saying, what are you thinking? What's going on here? Why are you pushing, going against what the citizens passed? And why are you pushing this bill? So here we can go through the history of this bill. It was, let's see, the hearing was January 21st. The executive action was taken January 23rd, right?
Yeah.
Rules committee placed on second. That kind of means when it's rules, that means they're preparing it to go onto the floor to be voted on. And then on February 5th, that's when it was voted on by the Senate floor. And you can see, if you click on this list, you can see exactly who voted for it. But we already looked at that. So now it's got a hearing February 7th today in Education Committee. So I don't know.
On the House, right? In the House.
On the House, yeah. So definitely be reaching out to your House committee members. We can do that real quick. So if you go up here, whoops.
And MJ, I don't know if you just noticed, but Khush is going to be jumping on. She's back in the green room right now to talk about that gender update. So I think she's scheduled here for just a little bit from now.
Yes.
So,
but we'll hold on just 1 second.
Yeah.
So
no problem.
The real quick, if you click on the bills, meetings, and sessions, you can go here to the committee schedule, and will take you. We're looking at the 7th, and
scroll down.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's all the committees.
And it was
we're looking for the education. There it is.
There
it's
it is.
1:30.
Now click the agenda and see if it's on there. I forgot the number now.
5181. It doesn't show that it's on there.
Okay.
Which is interesting. But it's saying on the other. So this would be something to watch today.
Yeah.
For the hearing.
And that's the 1:30 hearing. So is there another education in there? That's a different time, maybe?
No, that's the only time the education committee, the House Education Committee meets. Oh, okay. That's on the 10th. I'm sorry. Let's go back. We must have missed it. This is the 7th. So did we? Early learning. Oh, interesting. It's not showing. So there must be a mess up on that. So we'll stop. We'll kind of try to keep looking at that one and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So those quick links are, if you're more of, you're not an app person and you don't want to do the Washington Defender, go to FPIW Action. We have the bill library there, and it has all those quick links, or learn how to use the Ledge WA, right? I mean, one of the two, but we want you to get involved. If you want quick links, we have them available to make it easy for you. FPIWaction.org. And those are the bills that we need to be tracking and following. So also one comment on this, MJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but Fridays we get the agenda for the next week, right? So Fridays are a good day to go back to that screen of agendas that MJ was just showing. Is a good day to see what's coming up the next week. Of course, there's lots of organizations that try to help you with that. You have Nancy Churchill, you have Julie Barrett, you have us, you have a lot of people out there. I even think Firmly Planted, Heidi St. John is doing some as well. She's starting to follow some. So there's just a lot of great groups out there that you can follow, and that may be your flavor. But we need to stay active on top of those bills.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to reach out to those organizations, so Julie Barrett with Conservative Ladies of Washington, you can find her on X or search Conservative Ladies of Washington. You can sign up for her email, reminders, and they will send you a thing out kind of, I think, Sunday or Monday that tells you what are the bills they're watching for the week. But they'll also send you infrequent little things like, hey, watch out for this or that. Spokane GOP, since I'm from Spokane, also has, SpokaneGOP.com has a legislative action team that also, follows stuff very similar, makes it easy, gives you a one little click that you can sign in pro, sign in con, and kind of gives you the quick synopsis of the bill. And then, like Brian said, of course, you got your Defender app and FPIW action.org.com.
Yeah, .org. Yep.
Yeah. And then influencing Olympia, I believe, is Nancy
Yeah.
Churchill's.
Nancy Churchill's.
And then you said Heidi St. John is also doing some stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so she's got Firmly Planted Action, and then Georgina. I mean, so
Firmly.
there's just a lot of people you can follow, and I'll tell you that there's going to be some that they're going to have different positions on things because we're something called human, so we're going to have different perspectives on things. It's okay. The key is let's get us all going and moving and taking direction in those things, and and that way our voice is heard because that's what we need to steward really well.
Yes.
So.
Well, we're going to bring on Khush Brar and to the stage. So let's bring her on. Welcome, Khush. How are you? You still got your mute on.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, MJ. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good to see you. So let's let Khush do her disclaimer of who she's speaking on behalf of right now, just so we get that out of the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so Khush Brar here, Lynwood School Board member. However, I do not speak on behalf of the board.
Yes, okay. Yes. Well, Brian, do you want to do an intro about, because I know you've spoken.
So Khush and I are best friends, actually. We have been, no, I'm just kidding. We met, we did an interview that didn't record, and then we did another one. And I just have fallen just great inspiration from how she's leading, and just loving the fact that she's taking a stand on these issues. So we talked about earlier this week about the very fact that boys are trying to play in girls sports, and Amendment 7 and 8 on SaveGirlsSportsWA.com. And so I actually asked my assistant to bring her back on because Trump signed an executive order, and I just wanted an update. So Khush, I'll let you say whatever you want from here on out. There you go.
Yeah, yes, we've got, I think we're not yet tired of winning. The executive order got signed yesterday, to protect and preserve girls' sports. So that was a great, really a sight for sore eyes to see President Trump with all of the girls around him, and right. Really, seeing him as a protector, as someone they look up to, for this issue. So that was great. Yeah. However, in Washington State, we do expect our AG, Attorney General, probably, filing a lawsuit against that in a couple of days or whatnot, because we've seen our state, join in for the lawsuit against the birthright citizenship executive order and the gender mutilation under 19 years old. That executive order, we've already joined on those lawsuits. So I don't think it would be a surprise to see, a lawsuit against this executive order pretty soon. But another good news is that NCAA, which is the kind of the Interscholastic Association for the collegiate level, alongside with NIAA, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right. So those two are Collegiate Interscholastic Sports Association. Now, NIAA already had changed its policy, around election time. I think this was even before elections, that they would only honor biological females for the female category. But after this executive order, in just a couple of hours, we saw NCAA change its policy to say that female sports are only for females, and that boys are prohibited from that category. So that's something.
That is something. And Khush, just to kind of bridge the gap, do you know MJ Bolt officially or not? Because if not,
no.
Okay, so MJ Bolt, I may overstate this. She's a professional golf player, and so she is. Is that accurate?
Well, I used to be a professional golf teacher.
So to me, she is like
years ago.
Yeah. She's really good, but she's been involved in sports and women's sports, and we actually talked about so this is MJ's show, Unbolted, and she MJ, I'll let you introduce her and give your credential a little bit about that as well. So.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate your work on this, because Brian was sharing with me. This is near and dear to my heart because I got a scholarship to the University of Iowa. In fact, I was going to pull up my post that when I saw that yesterday, and I saw the girls surrounding President Trump, and I saw him sign that, like, I seriously got tears in my eyes, because it's so important, that we have these opportunities for our students and for our children. And I pretty much, was born with a golf club in my hand. And so I played junior golf and competitively, statewide as well as nationally. I got a golf scholarship to the University of Iowa. I wouldn't have gone otherwise. I wasn't quite good enough to go to the warm schools, but I was good enough to get a scholarship, to a Big Ten. We had my first year there, we won the Big Ten championship, and I was freshman of the year, actually. And so, that gave me sports are such a critical part of, maturing and learning so much. Sometimes I think we learn more through sports than actual school. Sometimes, it gives, there's research that kids do better when they are engaged in these out of school activities. I did a lot of research on that. So this is very near and dear to my heart, because I would have never had those opportunities if I had to compete against a male. They can hit the ball way farther than I can. And I would have never, had that opportunity. So, and this is a non-contact sport, right? This is right. Then you get into like boxing and all of that. It's just crazy. So very, very near and dear to my heart. And then I'll just share as well, I was a school board member because of my involvement with my son. I did PTA. I was very involved. I helped with levies, and then I was on the school board. And then most recently, I was on the State Board of Education for 8 years. And so, understand school board policy and stuff. So I really appreciate what you're doing. School board members are not paid. You might get a little compensation, but you're not paid. It's all volunteer. And so you being an advocate is just so critical on issues like this, and helping raise awareness, because again, so much of this stuff just passes under people's radars, and they don't know what's happening. So really do appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, MJ.
Yeah. And so this was when MJ said, "Hey, will you be on the show today?" I was like, "We got to have Khush on too, because you guys have a lot in common. You guys share a lot of same interests as you go." So I want to put the website up. So Khush, just so I'm clear, we still need to take action on this, right? For Amendment 7 and 8, right? Is that
the battle and the fight continues in Washington State. Unfortunately, if only it was that easy, things would have changed by now. But WIAA is still kind of at that point of, we're deferring to the state law. And then state law, obviously, our legislature, as we have witnessed in this session, our attorney general, our governor, they're definitely not going to be easily persuaded to really uphold the rights of girls as well. I don't know, when they say equity, what about the equity for girls then in this sense? How can you discriminate with the girls while you're trying not to discriminate with other students? Why can't we talk about all students here? I do think that there can be a solution, to get and care for all students. All students can still play, but when I think of it from a female standpoint, I can only play, let's just say I'm a high school athlete, I can only play in the female category. Whereas a transgender athlete can change, in which category they play. That can happen at every meet. And I don't think that's fair at all, right? So we are losing the point here of fairness, and we're putting both the transgender athletes, our female athletes, in a very impossible position, a hard place between, like they say, a place between a rock and a hard place, right? So how do they say that, we want to be inclusive, but then we're excluding, the girls in the process, or the other way around? So really, I think it's more this issue has been a weapon for the politicians to play, I think, because if there was really an intent, a good intent to think about our students or children, there would have been a solution by now.
Yeah.
But they want to weaponize it.
I think
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
Khush, I
you
know we
raise
don't have.
great points for that. Go
What are
ahead,
you
Brian.
asking people to do as an action item?
Yes, action item. Sorry.
That's good.
SaveGirlsSports.com. So go to that website. You will see there is something to do if you are a school board member, if you're an organization, or if you're just a public citizen who's concerned. You're a parent, grandparent, parent. You can definitely do something. It's better to do something than nothing at all, because that would be complacency. You would be saying that I'm okay with what's happening today because maybe, I don't have kids in the school, or, I don't have any girls. It doesn't affect me. So that's really not what our values teach us. So please definitely do something, because like I said, the fight still continues here in Washington State. Now, there are several avenues that you can take, but the buck starts and stops at your school board. Despite what they say to you, despite the excuses, they do hold broad discretionary powers. And in terms of WIAA does not hold any legislative authority. The authority comes from boards. We delegate that to WIAA every year. We renew that contract because they do the services. They're like a third party, right? We pay dues into them. Now these are public taxpayer dollars, and then they provide us those services, of scheduling, meets and whatnot, coaches, et cetera, et cetera. So the schools have a say through their athletic directors. Every school district will have an athletic director, every school district, that will be forwarding their school's vote on the 16 amendments presented for this year for the WIAA Representative Assembly. And those school votes are then looked at by the voting representative of how does the league want me to vote, because they're giving the marching orders to that voting representative. So they take that, right? Let's say, there were 7 schools in that one league, and then 4 of them say, let's vote yes, 3 of them say no. Now, there is no process that says, in WIAA handbook that this should be documented. That's kind of like where my pet peeve is why isn't there transparency? Why is there opaqueness? But doesn't mean that we're not going to contact our school boards. Doesn't mean that we're not going to tell them to secure and confirm the vote yes for amendments 7 and 8, because both of them are going to be, voted on separately. And then if they get a tie, or, if they pass, I think there's a process there to kind of hash out which of the two would be moving forward. But yeah, so you've got the athletic directors, that's your school votes. They're going to forward it to the leagues. The leagues get the marching order, right? The voting representative, one voting representative from each league. And then that's what they take at the online ballot representative assembly in April. So we have got February and March. You can either write a letter also to WIAA. The best thing to do is pass a resolution, because we're not just up for WIAA here. We are up against Olympia. So we're trying to put up a structure where we can fight back on the unconstitutional laws that are coming down. And this is just one example of that. But if you don't want to be in the news, don't want to be in any kind of controversy, that's okay. You can still secure your school's vote via your athletic director. And sometimes it's not the athletic director. They can redesignate that to the principal or the superintendent. Either way, school boards needs to be talking about Amendment 7 and 8 during their public meetings.
Yep. Yeah, great information. Very good information. I saw this morning, real quick. If I can share my screen again, I wanted to show you one of our representatives' posts that he had, because I think this is what is just so troubling right now. Can you see this post from Travis Couture?
Yes.
On the screen. So he said OSPI has too much work to do stealing opportunity from girls in sports to fix this. So it shows just like what's going on with the state of our education in Washington State. We've got reading and math going down, spending's gone up. And yet here's the statement but from Superintendent Reichtel that says our state law prohibits discrimination on the basis of gender identity, and we will not back down from that. So it definitely seems like he's going to put up a fight, which doesn't surprise me. Our administration, he is separately elected in our state from the governor. Some states, you have an appointed superintendent of public instruction, but our superintendent of public instruction is elected by the citizens directly. And he is obviously holding ground, unfortunately,
Yeah.
on
That
this issue.
graph is very depictable of what, our situation is in Washington state. And the fact that, there's another graph nationally that you would see that administrative positions have gone exponentially upwards. And then the number of students is kind of like in that plateau, stable. Number of teachers is also stable, but the administrative staff, you would see, and that's where the biggest chunk or cost also kind of comes there because of the unfunded mandates that are coming down from Olympia. Now these are the distraction, this is the noise. Again, they are not for the students, they are there for their politics, because if we spend time on academic outcomes, we would do better. But we are spending time as school boards, and this is all over. I'm not just talking about my school board here, it's all over the state, where we're grappling against these unjust policies that are coming down from Olympia, instead of letting us focus on when I say us, letting the school boards across the state focus on academic excellence and academic outcomes for student outcomes. What are their services that we're providing the families through the public taxpayer dollars? That should be the focus. But since this is Washington, politics is more important. And again, that's the noise, the distraction that we would like to, what do you call that?
Rise above.
Rise above, yes.
Yeah.
But we are not able to, because of the dictatorship and autocratic rule that is coming from Olympia.
You're making a great point about opportunity cost, right? So like in business, they say opportunity cost. In other words, it's not that it costs you something, it's that you lost the opportunity to get that something. And so that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's
exactly what's happening right now. Yeah. Too much noise, too much distraction from exactly what we should be focusing on, and that's exactly why the data doesn't lie. And then think about our mission of having career-ready students and citizens. I don't think we'll be able to achieve that if we are left grappling with these laws, unconstitutional laws coming from Olympia. And then thing is, if we go into lawsuits, if we spend the time in our school boards just discussing how do we oppose these, because these are not for our students, they're so out of touch of reality that these are not needed in the classrooms. They hardly make any difference in the positive outcomes of student and academic excellence. We're wasting a lot of taxpayer money right there, because time is.
It is. And we have to have an ROI. There has to be a return on our investment, and there needs to be a strategic focus, right? There's only so much we can do, right? Whether you're on the school board, whether you're on the state board of education, you can't do everything, right?
No, so it's hours of instructional time, and then they want us to start teaching anything other than math, English, and science.
And when you have the results going down, like we saw in that graph, and we've been seeing that for a while, when the legislature comes up with all this other agenda of all these, it's a woke agenda, in my opinion, that is really not helping. I get it, and I've been in those conversations. I know you have too, Khush, being at a school board member, where we're talking about every kid needs to be safe, they need to feel loved, they'll learn better. The problem is it's not working, it's getting worse. Our return on investment is getting worse. So we either need to be honest about that, or we're hurting. I mean, we're damaging. We are damaging our children's future right now.
Definitely. At the last podcast me and Brian had, we were talking about, children do not ask about what their pronouns are. Children do not ask about, what their gender is. Children, it's the adults who did that, and maybe leave the children alone, and we'd be fine. But then again, like you said, maybe there is an intentional agenda of destroying children instead of, helping them out. Because I have received communications throughout this movement from lesbian, gay, bi people saying that, we don't want to be destroying girls' sports, this misplaced empathy of some of the people that fall under the evilness of the mainstream media, the politician, trend of we're protecting, transgender students. It's actually harming them in the long run because they don't want to exclude anybody. They're suffering from, let's say, their own undue stress and whatnot. Do we really think they're the kind of people that would like to put the same thing, same stress on other people? I don't think so. So that's the problem of putting boards, putting people in a very difficult position where we can't be non-partisan anymore because our state is very partisan in terms of the agenda that's coming down from there. And then they're going to say, well, Khush, your language is too strong. I'm sorry. I'm just speaking the truth, If you would just let us be partisan. Again, there's no place of politics in schools and classrooms, and teachers don't even want that. The students don't want that because it has nothing to do with education. Let's just keep it as education only, as science, math, English, and whatnot. Let's focus on that. If religion, is not taught, it's prohibited in schools, then I don't think the gender ideology should be brought into schools. Why are you forcing me to accept your reality?
Right.
I can respect what you want to do in your life, especially if you're an adult. If you're a child, not really, because your prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed for the executive decisions, for your reasoning, for your decision making until you're 21 years old of age. And that's exactly why we call them minor. They're dependents for that reason. And I think it's just very evil to be giving 13-year-old the power that they can, and the burden, right, that they cannot carry of making non-reversible decisions in their life that they may regret at the end. So I think that's very evil. And I think there needs to be some sort of balance in terms of what kind of policy is coming from Olympia. If it's going to be too prescriptive, you don't need school boards. Okay. We may go on strike. Again, I'm not talking on behalf of my board. Maybe there are other school board directors out there that share the same sentiment as I am going through, because I'm infuriated at looking at the bills in this legislative session. They're too prescriptive. What can we put in our handbook? Well, Olympia tells you what you can do and not do. What can we, put in our curriculum? Well, you don't need a curriculum director because Olympia is going to tell you, what to put there and what not to put there. Well, what kind of policies can we put, in place for our school district? Well, you don't need that. Olympia is going to tell you.
Yeah.
So what are we there for?
Right.
Why are we there? If you're going to, legislate everything to the T, then might as well, take us out of the equation. Go ahead and do that. And maybe you might just, hit the ceiling right there. And then you'll see,
So MJ, you don't know this, but Khush actually comes from so she came from the Philippines. Is that right?
Yeah, I was born and brought up in the Philippines, but by blood I'm Punjabi.
Yeah. So so what I've noticed a lot is that there's a boldness that comes from those who've moved in, right? And legal resident, blueberry farmer up north and on the west side. And I'm just thankful. And one of the things that you're pointing out, and I don't know if you probably know this, Khush, but so from a Christian biblical worldview is we believe in decentralized power because men are inherently evil, right? We have a tendency to do the wrong thing. And when I said men, I meant mankind, by the way, women included. But we have this tendency to do this. And what you're saying is a centralized power where Olympia does it. Have you noticed that is going on all around? The administrative state says it. The administrative state says it, and it's like centralizing power. And what we know is, and Khush has a little bit different religious background, but she was raised, and I'm not. It's because I did an interview earlier, but she went to a Catholic school, right? And so she has Catholicism and say the other one again.
Sikhism.
Sikhism. So she has some different background on this, but at least I know, and probably with the Catholics, we would agree, like centralized power usually ends up something not good. We have to decentralize it so that the school board members are saying, this is what's best for my community. This is what's best for my students. And I think that's just a big point that you're hitting on there, Khush.
Yeah.
And we've been known, and we've prided ourselves on being a local control, state. Like, even I'm just 2 years removed. I think that's right. No, just a year. I'm sorry, from being on the State Board of Education. And we talked about that all the time. And that is a really important thing. I don't think it's true anymore because of the points that you just, itemized out, Khush. But it's really important because where do parents go when they're not happy with the policy? Where did parents go when COVID happened and the mask mandates happened and the vaccination mandates happened and the schools were closed? They go to their local school boards. But were the school boards able to do anything? No, because the decisions were made at the state level by the executive officers, the governor and the superintendent of public instruction, because the legislators gave them that power. I'm not sure about the superintendent, but they did give.
They do. The legislature is giving more and more power to OSPI by every session. And this session, what I'm infuriated at is there is no stopping teachers, to teach any kind of controversial topic, that falls under the protected classes. And that isn't education. And there's no stopping OSPI to withhold our funds if we are not compliant, because they have, and the state has in their budget, budgeted money to make sure that the 295 school districts are in compliance. And I think at this point, when you have a government, that is, I don't know, dictatorship at this point. That's what it is right now. The thing is, we hold the power. We, the people, hold the power. And when government, stops working for us and it's working for itself, I think that calls for, really dismantling it at this point, because I don't think I can comply. Now, again, I'm speaking as a, individual board member. And again, like I said, I do think and believe that there are many out there that share the same infuriation, frustration, and fire that I'm experiencing. I will not toe the line. Yep. What are you going to do? Withhold funds? Try.
Yeah. People like you, Khush, that will stand. And what's so important about you being on here, and again, thank you for being courageous to speak your truth and to be bold, because that encourages other people to stand up and to be bold too. A lot of people sit quiet. As a state board member, I did not use my voice for a long time because, I have a son that was vaccine injured. I have, and I know this is a little different topic, but I learned 22 years ago that I couldn't trust the government anymore because it hurt my son. He stopped talking for 2 years. And that's when I started to question stuff, but I stayed quiet because, it wasn't okay. It wasn't kosher to, talk about that stuff.
It was against the status quo at that point,
Yes.
Of speaking anything. If you're a feather ruffler, then you get called crazy and whatnot. So be it. I think the children are worth fighting for. And if I'm going to fight tooth and nail for my children, then I think I'm going to do it for every other children child out there. So there's no difference there of what I'm going to do for my children. And that's why, you have to be a little bit thick-skinned when it comes to, because there's going to be a lot of attacks on your morale in terms of, well, you're this and you're that, you're not for all students. And I keep reminding everybody, I said, you know what? I was born and brought up in the Philippines, and you'll see more gays there than probably anywhere else in the world, more lesbians and whatnot. And those are my friends. They're still my friends. They have every right to live their life, of having same-sex marriages, or, being a gay or a lesbian or a bi. But I'm not forced to accept their reality because I have my own innate beliefs as well. And I have a constitutional right to that as well. So they respect that, they respect the fact that I will not introduce my children to that kind of ideology at this point, because again, it's not, our beliefs and our family values that align with that. So my friends understand that. but they do know that I still respect them living their lives. I'm not going to come with stones and then pelt them because I don't agree with them. So at this point, what's happening with Olympia is they are encroaching on the constitutionally protected rights of females and other students by forcing, under the disguise of protecting, certain groups of students. So I think, again, it's the weaponization. I don't think that's the reality within the schools. And what can I say? Like I said, it's very hard to be nonpartisan in a partisan state. So that's one of my board members would say that, and that's definitely true. And it's very hard to be, I think this is that year where we will see boards, whether they will toe the line on the bills that are coming down from Olympia, because they are definitely unconstitutional. But well,
Yep.
this is the year. We'll
Yeah,
see.
and we might need more school boards to stand up and even, sue the government, because, and sometimes that's how you have to fight it. And you hate for the money that needs to go to students to go to that. But again, if these policies are hurting students, then I think it's timely for that. Brian, you've got something that you want to share.
Yeah, I didn't
right?
mean for it to pop up earlier. I don't know what I pushed wrong, but I wanted to show that Khush is just not making this up. So this is the Washington State Constitution. All political power is inherent in the people, and the government derives their just powers from the consent of the governed, which is us, right?
Mhm.
And are established to protect and maintain individual rights. So I just like to point this out because we say these things, and I think sometimes we don't go back to the source and just really look at it. And the preamble says, "We, the people of the United States, grateful to the supreme ruler of the universe." What people don't understand is, in a republic, you have the sovereignty of God and the free will of man. And they're right there at the very beginning of both documents, whether it's the federal constitution or our state constitution. And
Mhm.
this is where we don't end up in dictatorships as we go. We really end up in that place that says the people, and that people there is also the school board members. So when you keep saying it's Olympia, that's contrary to the Constitution of the state of Washington and to the Constitution of the federal government.
Mhm.
So
We took an oath, to uphold the U.S. Constitution, the Washington State Constitution, federal laws, and then state laws, and then city laws and whatnot. There's a reason why there's a hierarchy to that in that order, because it tells you which supersedes which.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Khush, how can people reach out to you and connect with you in this fight that you are doing, and support the work you're doing, or maybe even ask you questions? I think a lot of people want to engage with their schools, want to engage with their school board, maybe don't know how. Maybe their issue is, boys not competing against girls in girls sports, or it might be some other issue. How can people find you?
Well, for me, the website is the best place to go to. There's a info@savegirlssportswa.com. That's where you can reach me. But I'm going to put my personal number out there for anybody, listening. That's 360-543-3980. I'm not, I'm always available to ask questions. I'm always available to answer questions, because I myself am learning a lot. It's only been a year that I've been on the board. And when I came on the board, I didn't know what Title IX was. I won't be embarrassed, but we've come a long way. So I think people really need to know that you have the power. We are in the process of doing, putting out facts and kind of debunking what WIAA's narrative is. I had a call yesterday with WIAA asking for a specific record of their voting that happened on January 27th. And this person is a senior person in the staff, kind of like next to the executive director. And she told me that WIAA is a private nonprofit organization. And private is a big question mark, because the RCW does not say that WIAA is a private nonprofit organization. That's something that they have made up. The WIAA, the Washington Interscholastic Athletic Association, is a nonprofit organization. That's the correct. But when they put the private in front of that, that just negates the fact that, they have primarily schools, public schools as members, and what funds them is primarily public taxpayer dollars. I don't know why they need to get reminded of that. And I was just shocked. I didn't tell her who I was, I just wanted to see, get a record of what happened in January 27. And she said, we don't really record who said yes and who said no. We just, put there if an amendment passed or failed. And really my common sense was like, okay, why do you have the minutes then? Why do you need the minutes for if you're not going to record who said yes and who said no? And this is my open challenge to WIAA, really. If you think and believe that you are not a public sub-agency, get a lawyer in front of me. Let's try to hash this out in court, because if you're telling me that you're a private organization, maybe school boards are also private organizations at this point. You are funded by public taxpayer dollars. And I was just flabbergasted at that point when she said that. And then she said, well, I don't know much about this. It's out of my league. And then she deflected a little bit. But if that's what they can tell to a stranger, imagine the kind of information they are spewing to their athletic directors, to their voting representatives, which is their legislative authority in WIAA to make the rules and regulations and amendments and whatnot. That we need to get the right information out there. So we are, going to be contacting athletic directors, school board directors in all of Washington. So stay tuned.
So, Khush, go ahead.
Yeah, you as a member, you're a member of WIAA. The school boards are members, and you definitely should be able to get those. We need to do some research on that.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because I can tell you, I mean, I know MJ knows this. I teach Robert's Rules of Order, and I teach note taking, and I can tell you, if they are private, they don't necessarily have to record all the people's vote. They don't. That's the difference between a private and a public entity. So I'm just wondering, now you've got my little antenna going up. Are they a registered 501c3 or they could be a C4 or C6? It could be a number of different things.
They are a nonprofit. Yeah, there's a RCW. It's 28A.
Yeah.
600. 200, which means that the authority to control, regulate, and supervise is vested in school boards. And school boards can delegate that to a nonprofit agency. So doesn't that mean that the rules that apply to us would apply to that, entity and agency in terms of transparency and whatnot, because aren't they?
I don't know that they would be, Khush. I think that's a hard one to do. So I would say, so when I used to do business coaching for organizations, I would say, if you're not comfortable with the organization you're delegating to, and that they're going to follow their own policies or whatever, then you shouldn't delegate it to them. And that's a big movement. But I'm very curious about, I'm kind of a geek on these things. So I'm very curious, are they truly they'd probably be a 501c6, which is a nonprofit.
Let's look into it, Brian.
Yeah, I think we should, because that's very interesting.
Because they keep claiming they are a private, they do have private schools as members. Now, I don't know if that makes them, and that's why we're going to hash it out, let's
501c3s, usually you would coach people not to record who did what. And you do that because of these legal arguments that you get into, right? Because it's not a public forum. So it's interesting that that's a new piece of information for me. I have to process if they're truly private. It'd be pretty easy.
It's an association. So that's like an association. So we have like the you'll be familiar with this, Khush. You have the Principals Association, you have the administrators, WIAA.
WIAA is here, but WIAA is transparent. You can ask.
Yeah, it's transparent, but I don't necessarily know that it's not the same thing. Like Spokane GOP, I was the chairwoman of the Spokane GOP, and we, we don't have to disclose the minutes. And so I think it might be different, because I'm used to the Open Public Meetings Act as
I think it's a 501c6. If you look it up, I bet you'll find out it's a 501c6. And I don't think.
Look that up, Brian.
501c6.
Yeah, which is I'm guessing. And so this is so if anyone's taking notes, we're guessing. We're doing this live, so don't hold.
We want to do the research, and that's why we want to challenge people to look into the core of it, because again, if it was school boards, the authority is in school boards. Let's just say we don't give it to WIAA, and it's us. and we're all meeting, and then imagine 295 school boards meeting and then hashing out the schedules, the rules, coaches and whatnot. Would we be exempt from OPMA at that point then?
Oh, they are saying they're a C3. They are
So
saying they're a C3.
they are a
private.
nonprofit, but the private.
So we know, Khush, 501c3, 501c4, 501c6 are all nonprofit. They can do different things.
But
that is saying they're a private C3. That is so interesting. So typically they don't record. I mean, I would tell you in business coaching, I would tell them not to record what each member did.
So how do we know that our taxpayers, okay?
Right.
How do we know? Because transparency is important when it comes to taxpayers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They are funded by our taxpayer dollars. So how do we get to know what's happening within that? And here's the thing: when it comes to public records, the voting representatives are school employees. The athletic directors, the 53 voting members, they're school employees. They don't have bureaucratic people in there. Even on the executive board, you have to be either a teacher, either a superintendent, teacher on the middle school level or high school level, because those are the members. You can't have an elementary teacher representing the middle school or the high school vote. These are all public school employees. So if somebody tells me that I cannot know what the public school employee, how they voted, what's happening within WIAA, I think that's very wrong. And that needs to be corrected.
And I think, Brian, this is kind of like when we have committees and you have like the board that delegates authority to the committee.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening, Khush, is because you are voluntarily the school
giving
board.
You're giving up your authority.
Voluntarily, giving your money to be a member of this private.
It's private. I can't believe that. I'm shocked. I mean, like, this is like breaking news for me. I'm shocked by it because I was like, wow.
I think
I would still kind of stick because Brian, if you have a copy of the RCW, the 28A 600 200,
I can bring it up.
Yeah, bring that one. Bring that one.
Hey, while I'm doing that, MJ, put your screen back up again and let's copy that link so people, if they want to do the research, into the comments. RCW
28A.
So this is just WIAA.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can click about us. So this is just,
Yeah, see, that's in their handbook as well, that they are a private nonprofit 501c3. But then again, they're funded with public taxpayer dollars. And if as a parent, I don't know what's happening within WIAA, we should be concerned.
So I think what you do, Khush, is that whoever your representative is, that might be something for your school board to consider, is that those things are made public. I think
I think the contract, the resolution that we renew every year, I think we ought to start putting in there some kind of transparency clause or whatnot. But Brian has that document up for the RCW. So if I look at that, it says that we can delegate, may delegate, right? The control supervision. That's the first paragraph right there. To the Washington Interscholastic Athletic Association or any voluntary nonprofit entity. It doesn't say anything such as, private. But then I get your point in terms of what is that resolution that we sign every year that we use to delegate that authority? Because then that's how we get out of the equation, right? And then that's why we're in the position today where we're not consulted anymore.
What I'm saying to you, I guess, is I agree with the principle that you're laying out. I'm telling you that where you delegated your authority, they're not necessarily obligated to do that. So that's either ignorance on behalf of everyone, or maybe they didn't care, or it was willful. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what was behind it all, but I do know that under private nonprofits, it's usually advised that less is more, because it all becomes legal entanglement, right? So you may want to have a clause like MJ is saying, where no, you're basically like a committee. You got to tell us how people voted, right? There may need to be an adjustment there. I don't
Well,
know.
and again, I think as a member, your school board is a member, and you should be able to get that as a member. Now, are they going to make
right?
it
Yeah,
public?
at least as a member, we should be able to get how our school voted
Yeah.
and get that record, how our other members in the league voted. But then when they say that no, we don't have any record of that yet, that's what they use to tally during that meeting.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind away. When see, the thing is, money has strings, right? And when they are, because there are case laws, and we talked about this in the last podcast. So there's a case in Connecticut right now that's going on. It's called the Soul versus their Connecticut Interscholastic Association. It's called the CIAC. And then this case was brought upon by female against transgender athletes, that against boys, biological males playing in the female category. And within that, there was an opinion by that judge. It hasn't been ruled yet. It's still pending in Connecticut. It was ruled by the judge. Now, this is a federal court, that the CAIC is a sub-agency because it is primarily funded by public taxpayer dollars.
Interesting.
Right.
Well, and so there you go. We might have, that might be something that you'll want to.
And there's so many other, and that's, so many cases. If we can't hold responsible, like, are we doing money laundering here? That as soon as we pay somebody, some kind of money, even our employees, even they are, as public school employees, they're not exempt from, being accountable, right, to their actions and whatnot. If we are going to pay somebody as dues and money, and then that obliterates and abrogates the responsibility to be transparent, I don't think it should be working that way.
Right. And that's where, again, I believe you can leverage. It's all about leveraging, right? As a school board member and as part of your contract, if that's an important thing that you want to change, right?
Here it tells you how to do it. In there. I just put back up here. Can you put right here? It says any rules and policies and applied by the voluntary nonprofit entity that governs student participation in any blah 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 shall be in writing. Such rules and policies shall be provided. I mean, that's just talking about the rules of it. Wait, here. The Association of Other Voluntary Nonprofit Entity is authorized to impose penalties for rules violations. Nah, I misread that. Sorry, that was me listening to you at the same time, MJ, as I was trying to see how that, Khush, we need to research that. Like, how do you define the relationship in essence with this private nonprofit? Because I can tell you, most private nonprofits, you don't record. I mean, you're advised not to record from a legal standpoint those things, because it comes back to be cumbersome. So,
if we can't sue WIAA for how they are controlling and regulating and supervising the sports, I think as parents and school boards, we're at loss here. We're not winning in this situation. But then again, like I said, there are case laws out there. Connecticut case is one that I told you. And then there's another one in West Virginia. It's the BJP versus the West Virginia State Board of Education.
Yeah, right.
Is
there a contract between you guys? I would get that contract between you and the WIAA and see if that's amendable.
Oh, absolutely. But there's a copy of that. Every school district would have that. We usually renew it in the spring. And what would be interesting is to see whether that is a uniform contract that goes to all 295 school districts, which I would assume it is, because they want to keep it uniform. They can't have a different contract to service this school district versus that school district. I would assume it's the same, but I think that's where we can, make that change of, there needs to be transparency.
Especially with the public entity.
There shouldn't be any reason, honestly, even if you're a private nonprofit organization. But again, in this case, it's WIAA. It's for the public schools. It's made up of the public schools, some private. But 80-90% it is public schools. That's how you're funded. There shouldn't be any reason not to be transparent.
Well, and that might be, again, a very good initiative.
Unless you have a boogeyman. Then you're hiding something.
And that's really what the school boards in our state should go after, is to change that contract and demand. Again, you have leverage. You're the members. You need to propose that, need to get people on board with that. And say, we want that as part of our contract. Well, Khush, I know we've ran a little long here, but we really appreciate, this has been a great conversation. And I think let's do some research into this,
Yeah.
and let's have you back on, and maybe we can dig into this a little bit. I love this because Brian is kind of weaving. He's doing what Trump does sometimes, weaving in his knowledge of Robert's Rules of Order and bylaws training, which we have another training coming up, by the way, a shameless plug, on the 12th at 4:30 right here on X or Facebook or whatever else that you're viewing us on, Rumble, where we're going to be doing the second training about Robert's Rules of Order and bylaw training as we dig deeper and help you learn how to advocate, because you got to know the rules of the room to be able to operate properly and leverage this type of thing. We talk about minutes, we talk about recording, we talk about how to make a motion, and that is your opportunity, your right when you are on these boards. And so we want to help people gain that knowledge and get those tools so that they can be effective in their advocacy. So again, shameless plug, Wednesday at 12, or the 12th at 4:30 right here. And we do record all this. Somebody asked earlier if we record this. It is recorded. So
It's on
Khush,
like
thank
8
you again.
platforms. Right.
Yeah,
So,
good. Thank you so much for
yeah,
being
Khush.
here with us and sharing
Yeah.
with us this important issue. And I think how President Trump's, executive order on this, and as you stated, other executive orders that he has made, how this is going to affect our state is going to be very, very interesting watching. And we're going to want to keep a close, tie to this and look at this, because what we want to do and what I'm trying to do is help people engage, help people get motivated, get the information so that they can engage, so we can help change our system better, back to the citizens, back to our Constitution.
Fight for your state, fight for fight for your children. It's worth fighting for. Freedom is not free. It comes at a price. And sometimes it's just the eternal vigilance, really, because we're enjoying the fruits of other people, honestly, that have fought for this freedom, and we ought not to take it for granted.
Yep, exactly. Brian, any final thoughts from you?
No, I just would encourage you, let's defend and advance biblical values in the public square. If we don't, it's not going to happen. And some people are like, I don't like it to be biblical. Well, okay, let me just tell you this real quick. Most of our conservative ideas come from the Bible. Whether you like it or not, that's where they come from. So where do we get the idea of justice? It's from the Bible. Where do we get the idea of respect? It's from the Bible. Where do we get, all those things? You can say, well, it's just humanity. No, it's God's law written upon our heart. And so we get those basic interactions of each of us as individuals as we do. So, Khush, as always, such a pleasure to talk with you. And MJ, thank you for your grace. It was kind of a little bit weird. It's your show, but then I had interviewed her and I was like, we got to get her on to get an update. So, but thank you for that grace. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks both of you again for being on here, and happy Friday to you, and to everybody out there. Happy Friday. Blessings. Get engaged, stay engaged. Reach out to us however you want. And we want to know your questions too. So post on here your questions, anything that you want Brian to find out in Olympia. If you want, you got questions for Khush as she's advocating for these policies, let us know your questions and we'll get them out there, and then we'll come back to you with these answers. We're trying to do this every Friday, kind of an update from Olympia. So you can look forward to hearing from us again next week. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Blessings.